To that result, we're joined now by Sonia Sodha, who's a chief leader writer at The Observer, and Sarah Southern, a former aide to David Cameron. Sarah, let's go to you first. A positive result, a decisive result, time to move on.
Doesn't feel like that. I think if you've got 41% of your parliamentary party voting against you, you maybe aren't feeling as decisive as you would hope. I think the comparison that the Prime Minister made there, he's done better than 2019, well, it's not a like-for-like election. If that's the case, maybe let's have a rerun of the leadership election with the party.
Yeah, interesting take that. And it does feel like that comparison. We heard Simon Hart doing it on this programme earlier. Boris Johnson clearly seems to perhaps be one of the lines to take from Number 10 in response to it. Sonia Sodha, do you think this is worse than people are expecting?
It is worse than people are expecting, and it's kind of like it's a pretty bad result for the Conservative Party as well, I think, because at least if the Rebels had got enough votes together to sort of depose Boris Johnson imminently, that would have provided some kind of decision for the Conservative Party. Here, you've almost got the worst of all worlds, really. You've got a pretty bad vote for the Prime Minister, worse than people were expecting. That 2019 wrong. I mean, it's just wrong, actually. Boris Johnson got a greater proportion of the parliamentary party voting for him against Jeremy Hunt back in 2019 than now. So I think it shows just quite how desperate they are that they're sort of trying to find these lines to spin.
And also, it's a completely different vote. It's a confidence vote in the Prime Minister compared to a vote about who you would prefer as a leader.
Exactly. And so I think it leaves the Prime Minister really wounded. I think it massively undermines his legitimacy and authority within his parliamentary party. We've got a couple of really important by-elections coming up in the next couple of weeks, which it actually looks like the Conservatives are going to lose both of them. So it's a pretty dire state of affairs. But, Boris Johnson is Boris Johnson. He will try and cling on for as long as he can. But I think what this means is we're going to be stuck with a government that even more than ever is just kind of afflicted by paralysis, strife, conflict. And very little will get done for the country.
The thing that really struck me from Boris Johnson's interview there is what it says about what he intends to do in the coming months. And it is pretty clear that he is going to take this result as a mandate, whether people agree with it or not, to dig in and he's certainly not going to resign, is he? Where do you think this leaves the Conservative Party going forward?
He really now needs to win those MPs back on side. I don't believe he'll resign. I appreciate that, Theresa May lasted another 6 months after her leadership confidence vote. I think that the Prime Minister won't resign. But if he doesn't win those MPs back on side, and if he doesn't win the party membership back, I can't see how he's going to be in a strong position to fight a general election. So let's see what the outcome of the by-elections is at the end of June. We'll soon be into summer recess. I think the Prime Minister needs to decide what his agenda is moving forward. What is it that he stands for? How is he going to tackle this cost of living crisis? How is he going to tackle the energy crisis? If he doesn't do a barnstorming speech at party conference come October, I think he could be, again, in difficulty in terms of having support from the party faithful.
I think certainly, if any of the reaction for many Conservative MPs to this, if he makes it to the conference, then that is, in some ways, is quite a hurdle to clear. In some ways, Sonia, do you think this could be the best result for Labour? You've got a Prime Minister who is wounded, despite the fact that his allies are saying that it was decisive, but it doesn't look like he wants to go anywhere.
I think for Labour, probably the longer that Boris Johnson hangs around. I mean, it's not great for the country, but I think probably the better for the Labour Party, because I think if you look at the polling, what you can see quite clearly is that Boris Johnson is a real drag on the Conservative brand. He's doing much, much worse than the party itself. I think the reason why this vote is so problematic for him is it's reflective of the fact that his MPs have been out talking to their constituents, and we can see in the polls that the public have really turned against Boris Johnson in a way that they just weren't quite there maybe 6 months ago. And I think that's going to put a lot of pressure on his MPs. And it would be quite extraordinary if a Prime Minister managed to turn around the level of unpopularity that Boris Johnson now has got with voters. I think to turn that around is quite impossible, actually. So I do think that sooner or later his MPs will act. But I think, Labour, it's a really good outcome for Labour. That Boris Johnson sort of hanging around, the Tories. I mean, some of the vitriol we've been seeing from MPs like Nadine Dorries against Jeremy Hunt on Twitter and social media today, it's really quite something. It's been a long time since we've seen a governing party have this this level of public breakdown. So I think it's going to make voters even more cynical about Johnson, the government.
Talking about the voters, and what you'll hear allies of Boris Johnson saying, I guess, is that, look, polls are polls, an election, there's no imminent election going on. He was talking to Ali there, saying that he's got no desire to call a snap election. And Boris Johnson is a proven election winner. He not only won the leadership contest that they keep talking about, but he also won the 29 general election by a landslide. Talking to MPs like Alex Stafford, like I did earlier, from Rother Valley, the first ever Conservative MP for these kind of seats, they say, why would you get rid of him?
But that was Boris Johnson 2019 model. So much has happened, so much has changed. I don't believe that the public have got such an affection for him that they did 2.5 years ago. What was achieved in that 2019 election was incredible. I never thought in my lifetime that I would see so many Tory seats in the northeast of England. I effectively come from a Tory stronghold now, but I think that unless he brings that pizzazz back, I don't think the public will be voting for him again.
Thank you both very much indeed. Interesting to hear your thoughts tonight. Well, that is the end of our general election, I was going to say. We've been talking about the general elections. Here we go. Not for a while, we're told. Thank you very much for watching our confidence motion programme. Wow, what a result it was. Boris Johnson winning decisively, according to the Prime Minister. He says that will allow him to draw a line under things, with 211 of his own MPs voting in favour of his leadership. But 148 Conservative MPs, that is 4 in 10 of the parliamentary party, voting to say that they do not have confidence in his leadership. It is going to be a rocky few months ahead. Coming up next on Sky News